Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And tonight, here in Studio One at the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, I am very, very delighted and happy to be able to talk with a fabulous guitar player, finger picker, from way out on the other coast, Mary Flower. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Jeff. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks very much. I knew of you, met you up at Blues Week. You may not remember me. I was just some kind of a harmonica.
I do remember you, absolutely.
Guitar student. And then you've done a couple of concerts here at the house, and that's been a lot of fun. And then, boy, I sure had a great time when I found myself with one night in Portland, and you had a few gigs, and I had a gig, and then we went to a house concert, and we hung out, and it was a blast.
There's never a dull moment. There's music 24 hours a day, 8 days, 8 days a week.
8 days a week. It'd be a song. You could use that as song lyrics.
We could write a song. But it's all, the joint is jumping all the time. Yeah.
So I want to ask about your, how you came to the guitar and how you came to the finger picking and, really how you kind of honed your craft, if you will. But do you mind telling a little bit about when do you remember music in your life? Did your parents play music? Did you have a lot of music played in your house, or no? Or did you take lessons? Did you start off with the piano? I mean, how did you?
All of these things and more.
Oh.
I was the sixth of 5 kids. Boom, 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 boom. And then I was born 8 years later. So I sort of grew up watching my older siblings play and sing, and my father sang. And there would be lots of singing 3-part harmony around the table.
Wow.
My sisters we had 2 upright pianos in the music room, quote unquote, and they were back to back, so my sisters could play duets, and they both read music really well. Everybody played an instrument, everybody sang, and all the stuff at the school, And so I was born with a pretty darn good ear, and I was also pretty darn lazy. So the good news is I had the good ear, but my parents would see me picking out songs on the piano, and they thought piano lessons, got to do piano lessons. So I probably went through 4 or 5 teachers.
How old was
I think I maybe was 5 or 6 when they started me on piano, and I didn't want to learn how to read music because I knew it was faster if I could just use my ear. So I played by ear. And then I'd listen as the teacher played the piece and go home and try to get it in my head and come back the next week. And of course it would be completely rearranged because I wasn't reading the music. And they caught on pretty quickly. And this was punishable. This was a bad thing.
Ooh.
Not physical punishment, but it was very frowned upon because they didn't know what to do, how to channel this energy that I had for that. And so I quickly was I remember the most embarrassing moment of my life is going to a piano recital at a church, and the piano that I'd been working with at home and at my teacher's house had an insignia of the piano brand over middle C. And we got to the church, and there was no insignia, and I had no idea how to find middle C. My teacher refused to go up with me to point. So to point to where middle C was. So I just put my hands down anywhere and played the same piece in the same rhythm, and I could hear my father and my sister laughing in the back row because it sounded like some, John Cage, crazy thing. So anyway, that's my short-lived career with the piano. But my sister brought home a ukulele when I was before I was a teenager, and that was really fun for me. And then I begged until I got a guitar,
Wow.
And that was the beginning of the end for
Yeah,
me.
so just to go back for a second, but so your father, did he play, what instruments did he play?
You know, I think in college, he played French horn, but he didn't really play an instrument when I was
Okay.
growing up. He was published the town newspaper, the Democratic newspaper in this little town in Indiana.
Indiana.
And my mother didn't really sing. Somehow, music just in our family was just huge.
And what did your older siblings play? What instruments and what type of music? Do you remember?
Well, my sisters both played classical piano. I mean, they could do Bach, they could do duets, they could do pretty much anything. My brothers, one of them played drums. Boy, I can't remember because one was out of high school by the time I was remembering anything. So I guess I can't answer that. None of them still play. I think one of my sisters still plays, but none of them pursued this as a career.
Okay, so you got the guitar and you were 12 or 13 maybe, or?
Yeah, around there.
And what happened? Were you playing the Beatles to start out? Were you playing, what were you
The Beatles
playing?
weren't quite around yet. That was coming. But I played everything I could get my hands on. Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Chad Mitchell. I mean, I'd go to whatever I could find, I would bring home. But I wasn't aware of the roots of all this music, which came later at college time. And so I played anything, and I had a little folk group that's a whole nother story, because it was a pretty interesting story with that. But yeah, I spent pretty much my high school years dropping the needle back on the records to get, to what was that Paul Simon did, or, So
So you weren't getting chord charts off the internet back
there
then,
was,
you-
it was really hard back then. You really had to dig around. I had some books, I didn't have a teacher, and I wish I had a teacher. But nobody in this town played guitar where I grew up, and I guess I could have gone to a bigger town to try to find somebody, but that didn't happen.
Well, knowing the way that I learned, boy, I really need a teacher, and so I'm in awe of people like you who sort of pick it up and just do it. Okay,
I do a lot of listening.
A lot of listening.
So, yeah.
So, what would you call the style? I mean, it's acoustic blues folk, or what do you even call it?
Acid, no. I guess, people try to put me in a box. I get, at home they think of me as a blues person, and I just got an award back there from our Blues Society for
Nice.
being the best acoustic guitar player in our town, which is I've gotten that
The
award
Portland.
before. Yeah, and it's very lovely, but I do so much more than that. And if I just played acoustic blues, I would feel fenced in, because I go beyond that, as you will see when I have a concert. I go into the finger style. I could play instrumentals, and I play some lap slide and some pretty stuff, and it's kind of all over the map. But I certainly love the Piedmont style, and if I were to have to find a box, I would be delighted to say Piedmont style guitar.
So, how did you come upon Piedmont style guitar? Was that?
Probably through John Cephas in the 80s. He and Phil came to my house. They played a concert in my hometown, and they came over for a
Your
little
hometown
party
in
afterwards.
Indiana?
No, this was actually, we're fast forwarding years
Oops,
later,
sorry.
in Denver.
Denver.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, the whole time I was in college and all that, I was kind of playing folk music and beginning to write songs. And, so I didn't really have I was just trying to get as versatile as I could, kind of. But it wasn't until really the 80s that I really kind of focused on this kind of music.
Did you decide that you were just going to play music like right out of college, or did you?
And I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you give lessons too, or were you just giving
I
lessons?
gave lessons in high school.
Wow.
And with that money, I would go buy records and books.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a prodigy.
I wouldn't say that, but I was definitely driven.
You knew
and
what you wanted to
smitten. I
do.
was smitten by this guitar,
So one of the things about, the alternating thumb, and I started out playing harmonica, and I'm really loving guitar now. Gosh, I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And I love the finger style, and I love the alternating thumb Piedmont style. It takes a lot of intention. I mean, did you used to practice with a metronome or anything?
Never.
I mean, never?
That's probably why I speed up. But no, well, the Piedmont thing came later.
Okay.
I did a lot of listening because the guy I was married to at the time was we all worked at this place called the Denver Folklore Center, which is kind of legendary. And it was 3 storefronts in half a block. It was a bead shop and a performance space and a musical instrument place. All the Hot Rise guys worked there.
Uh-huh.
It was really a wonderful place to be. And now, why did I tell you that? Oh, my ex-husband managed the record shop and was always bringing home cutouts. And he had studied with Gary Davis.
Oh.
And so he would, there would always be somebody blind was on the turntable at home, somebody, playing this kind of music. And he had great taste. So it was always in the background. It was always going. So
Gary Davis, I talked not that long ago with Frank Vituski, who just is an admirer of Gary Davis. I think Bob Dylan was influenced by Gary Davis as well.
Well, they were both in New York at the same time. It wouldn't surprise me, but he did not pick up the Gary Davis skills, unfortunately.
No, well, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So as you've been playing music your whole life, obviously it grabs you. Can you sort of say what that is, or what you try to get out of it when you're playing? I mean, just thinking about what has music really meant in your life. You've obviously been doing it and playing and having a good time sharing that with people. Why do you do that?
What drives me? That's a really good question. I'm not sure how to answer it, except that when I'm in the middle of learning a song that I'm passionate about or writing a song, you're faced with this little puzzle, and it's you want to keep going until you complete the puzzle. And sometimes it's really challenging, and sometimes I put it away and then 6 months later get it out again and try to work on it. But it becomes something I want to complete, and you want to keep your repertoire new. I mean, if I showed up at a show and did exactly what I did 2 years before, I'd be mortified. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you want to keep yourself fresh, in terms of material. So if I can write new songs and keep that going into however old I get, that's a really positive thing for me. So, and something about being in a room and just being focused on on music for a long period of time, sometimes 3 or 4 hours at a time, is a pretty wonderful thing.
So what I think about then is it's almost like a seeking. I mean, we think of seekers as maybe in a religious perspective or spiritual, seeking God or the divine.
Fishing.
Fishing, is it better?
Fishing.
Fishing is, I guess, pretty spiritual. So it does have that element to it. It almost is not necessarily searching for meaning, but maybe, in a way.
Maybe. I don't know about meaning. And then, I write something and I have no idea if it's any good. I mean, I know that I'm attracted to it. I stuck it out long enough to, write 3 parts to it. But somebody else might not have really might not like it, or might be just passive about it, So it's really, you think you've written something good and you hope that everybody else likes it as well.
So you played before, probably hundreds of thousands of people, add it all up, and talked with a lot of people, hung out with musicians. What have you seen in terms of, I don't know, the power of music or how music affects people? Any sort of observations after sort of a lifetime of being a musician about that?
I think in the world in which we live right now, we need some positive distractions. And music is something that people can usually count on to take them away from if they're in a bad place, no matter what. And I like to think that I can help in that department. And I like to think that when I go to hear somebody really inspiring, that that's what it does for me. So in terms of healing or just taking me away, where you can get lost in it, it's kind of essential in this day and age, I think. It's good for me, anyway, to be on both ends.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can get in a car and you've been at work, or you've your head is in a place where you think you'd like for it to be somewhere different. You put some tunes on, and there you go.
It helps.
Presto, changeo.
Yeah, it really helps. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about music in a way, but that's one thing. That's a reason, kind of why I'm here doing this and talking with you. Is it just seems it's so powerful. It's a lot of the research I've been doing on music and the brain, and they say that an infant 6 months old can recognize a wrong note in a sequence.
Oh, is that right?
And
that's great.
It's so powerful. And what I think what musicians do, accomplished musicians like you, is just remarkable, and it almost doesn't get enough credence in a sense. We almost take it for granted that you can go somewhere and hear some fabulous musicians, or hey, that musician wasn't that good, but it's taken years and years of practice and intention.
And people have no idea.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you put in just countless.
And I think we're in a country that does not value this kind of excellence. I mean, Canadians really, and in Europe, people are really valued, and musicians are given grants and all kinds of things. It's rather sad to me that somebody can get to be somebody like Ernie Hawkins.
Yeah.
He's many of us are pushing 70, and there he sits all by himself, and he's just got all this knowledge and all this. And he's not in a bad place, but he should be a national treasure.
Yes.
He should be a god, as far as I'm concerned. And there are a few people like this that I believe. And I think if he had been born in a different country, he would be, just heralded as, having all the answers.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the pop music is just, it just doesn't do much. It's produced. And that's what people think is music. But it's just the authentic guitar. And I know Ernie, and I remember seeing you and him playing together out in front of Hallie Hurst's porch at Davis and Elkins College at Blues Week. And of course, you're both playing, it's very sort of complex music. I mean, there's a lot of fingers moving.
Yeah.
You're not just using a pick and strumming.
Right.
And it was amazing the way that you had 20 fingers going, and it was, just
it's music
seamless.
It imitates a piano. So on piano, you've got two hands making the notes, so you have to make up for that. But playing with Ernie is quite amazing. Yeah.
But I think you make a really good point about music in the country, and I didn't grow up we had a piano. I took piano lessons in 4th grade, had the recital, kind of freaked me out. My mom said, "Do you want to keep playing next semester?" And I said, "Well, no." Of course, that was just me, but my whole time growing up, I mean, the people I know at the prep school and they would think it'd be weird if somebody pulled out a guitar at a cocktail party or something like that. And
maybe at a cocktail party it'd be weird, but after school and or at a friend's house, or that's not so weird. I think guitars have always, as long as I can remember, from the 60s on, it's been a plus to be a guitar player. It's a chick magnet if you're a guy, quote unquote.
Well, people really revere, who doesn't want to be a rock and roll star, that sort of a thing. But I think you're right. I mean, people don't sing and dance. I was in the Catholic church, and we hardly even sang. I mean, a lot of people learn music and sing like crazy and all that, and at churches. I didn't. So you didn't really have church type stuff in your background.
I do.
You do?
And it's Catholic church.
Oh.
And they sang in Latin.
Oh.
And we had a tone-deaf organ player. And the pedals would be on the floor, and she'd miss a pedal, and it'd go the wrong note. And our family just like thought it was hysterical. Because Lucille was on the organ again, and man, it was awful. But and then it went to the folk stuff. That was really after, when I got to college, I was done, When I got out of the house, essentially, after high school, I was done with that. But then they went into the folk mass, And I remember my mother just hated it because she thought it just wasn't, because they had just horrible people playing, strumming guitars. And
yeah, it wasn't.
It brought it to a lower common denominator, a lower.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. So, I titled this podcast Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I think music is kind of magic in a way.
It can be.
And it can be. In what way would you say, or what have you seen, or do you feel it it's kind of got this magical quality?
Well, I can tell you what's not magical.
Okay.
And that's, when I hear music that's not good, and I'm trying to remember where I was recently that I was I remember where I was. When I hear music that I can't understand the words and people are struggling, it's even a simple song and the bass player doesn't know when to change. It's like, is it going to go to a C? Is it going to go to a D? Or they're not together. I find that inside I am just ready to strangle somebody. It really does something visceral to me. I just want, and I had to leave. It was after 4 songs, and I went, I cannot, this is horrible. And it just does something to me. The magical stuff is very powerful. I'm trying to think of an example. I don't go to big concerts. I saw a trio, the Jeremy Kittle Trio, in Portland with Quinn Bashand. They're 3 young guys that can't be 30 yet. And they did the most amazing fiddle, mandolin, and guitar, and it just took me away. It wasn't really Irish, it wasn't really fiddle tunes, I don't know what it was, but it was the fact that I had no idea where it was going, and it was so technically surprising, and they were all just masters of their instruments, and it just blew me away. So, I knew they were going to be good, but when it takes me away and it really becomes magical, that's when it's the powerful stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You did mention that John Cephas sort of got you into the Piedmont style. He was a kind of a magical guy.
He sure was.
He blew me away. I just couldn't wait to see him on stage at Blues Week.
Yeah.
So, one of the things at the Planetary Gig Society is we try to have this conversation about how can we promote music or do more with music, or what can musicians do, or what can people do to help what I think is sort of, get humans on a better trajectory than we seem to be at the moment with all the political craziness and stuff. And I don't know. Do you think about that much, or what role music or musicians might be able to play, or things that we should think about doing? Or
I'm not much of a promotions person, but I would say keep your radios off. If you listen to NPR, that's great, but don't listen to the crap on the radio that people are trying to sell you, because that's been all funded. It's not right, and it's not fair, and everybody's under 25, and they use auto-tune on their voices, and also, shows like the Voice and, all those shows where people just like all of a sudden they're famous. I think that's a very dangerous thing. for people so young who have not probably done their homework, but just were blessed with this amazing voice or something. So I don't know. I'm a little jaded. You know, I don't really know how to promote it, but when something strikes you as being creating a kind of a bliss in you, follow it. And listen to people when they come to your town. If somebody has house concerts, these are the people that you should be listening to, because they can't get the gigs in the big theaters, in the big auditoriums where they're pretty much bought for them by some company, you know.
Yeah, so it's almost like the music that's the most special to you, and I would agree with this, is sort of the music that's authentic from the heart, that people are playing with you, and you're sort of almost part of it in a way.
The grassroots movement, it's the future of music as far as I see it. And there are house concerts everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a really wonderful thing. And I know more and more people who are quote unquote famous, but maybe past their prime, not past their prime, but they're not in the famous world so much anymore, are doing house concerts because they realize it's a great place to be. So,
well, you know, I think that's maybe the best answer of all. Just more house concerts, more music with friends, more music in homes.
Yeah. Meeting other people, a community.
Yeah,
you know,
that's really fabulous.
it's all good.
Okay, so really appreciate your taking the time, Mary. It's been great talking with you. I've enjoyed being with you, and we'll just keep on doing it.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a good thing.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mary.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.